This is R2D Tech, and we're back again this week with a slightly delayed video on the Galaxy S20, S20 Plus and S20 Ultra, so stay tuned. When it comes to design, the Galaxy phones have always been very appealing. They still have a slight curve over the display, although this has been reduced quite a lot, which I personally think was a really good idea. But in addition to this, they have an almost bezel-less display, which looks absolutely stunning and I think is pretty incomparable to any other smartphone brand. Starting with the Galaxy S20, this one is definitely the most manageable when it comes to size. It fits in your palm really well and has a screen size of 6.2 inches. Now moving on to the S20 Plus, this is a slightly different beast. It has a 6.7 inch display, which obviously is quite a large increase in size. For most people, this will still be within your limits, but for some it might be slightly too large. One thing I will say is that even though the display size is very big, because of the small bezels, the phone is still quite slim. So even though the height of the phone has increased quite a lot, the width has remained quite constant. Now when it comes to the Galaxy S20 Ultra, there are no excuses. I'm not going to pretend that it's not a huge phone. In fact, it's an absolute beast with a 6.9 inch display. This is definitely above what I would consider comfortable in your hand. It's absolutely impossible to use this thing with one hand without having to do very uncomfortable shuffling movements with your hand. That's mainly because it's so tall. And also you might notice that the phone is actually slightly thicker than the S20 and S20 Plus, which makes it feel a bit more bulky, but of course this is because of some of the internals, which we'll get onto later. With the S20 Ultra you get a very cool camera unit, but this comes at the expense of having a very big camera bump, which does make the phone rock a bit on surfaces. Of course you can fix this by putting a nice case on, which will make the back of the phone flush and protect it.
Samsung always gets the best specs in their phone first, and this year is no exception. The S20 comes with the Snapdragon 865, the newest chip. It starts with a base 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage, which is upgradable to 10 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage if you want it. And finally it comes with a 4000 mAh battery, which is quite large but not the largest we've seen. Now the S20 Plus has exactly the same specs with the same options, apart from a slightly larger battery at 4500 mAh to account for the larger screen. The Galaxy S20 Ultra is a completely different story. While you do get the same Snapdragon 865, you get 12 gigs of RAM with 128 gigs of storage in the base model, which is upgradable to 16 gigs of RAM with 512 gigs of storage. That's pretty crazy and you'll never need that amount of RAM in a phone, but it's still nice to have. Lastly, you get a 5000 mAh battery, which is crazy. You do get upgradable storage in all of these with a micro SD card slot. And this means you can have up to 1 terabyte on the S20 Ultra, which is insane.
Next up is obviously the cameras. Samsung have always had one of the best image qualities on a smartphone, but of course they've been known to spice up the images a bit too much with contrast, and have been known to apply a beauty mode even when this is turned off. This is still the case, but it's definitely more refined, and if you like the way Samsung have taken photos in the past, then this is going to be even better than that. With the S20 you get a 12 megapixel primary lens with a 64 megapixel telephoto and then a 12 megapixel ultra wide lens. It's really good to see all three of these on the base model. The only thing that this is lacking, which the S20 Plus has as an additional lens, is the depth sensor, which is good for things like portrait mode and edge detection. Of course the S20 will still do a pretty good job at this without that extra depth sensor. The S20 Ultra is where things go pretty insane. It has a 108 megapixel primary lens. Now this is absolutely insane for a smartphone camera, and you're going to get so much detail with these shots. The sharpness will definitely be better, which we've already seen from camera tests, and this can be binned down to 12 megapixel photos if you want, and this will give you the advantage of having a lot more software processing, so the images might look slightly better. The way they do this is they take 9 pixels and they combine them to make 1 pixel, and if you divide 108 by 9 you get 12, which is like a normal 12 megapixel photo. You also get a 48 megapixel telephoto and a 12 megapixel ultra wide with the S20 Ultra. Of course, in addition, you get the same depth sensor which the S20 Plus comes with. Apart from the amazing photos that all three of these phones takes, and the slightly higher resolution photos which the S20 Ultra can take, another really key feature with all of these phones is actually video. All three of these phones are capable for the first time ever of shooting 8K video at 24 frames per second. Now, this is quite a low frame rate, so it might not be the smoothest if you're running about, but Samsung have got a super steady mode which actually does a pretty good job when you're using the 4K resolution at smoothing out any bumps when you're running around. But the 8K mode does lack some of these features. It's definitely not the steadiest, and it lacks things like good autofocus, but they've already mentioned that they might be updating some of these things in future updates on the software.
Now, it's no secret that Samsung always have the best displays on their phones. This year, they've gone one step further. You still get the really vibrant OLED screens that we've seen from Samsung in the past, but this year you get a 120Hz refresh rate with a 240Hz touch response time, which is pretty crazy. That means that things like scrolling will be really smooth, even smoother than other phones like the OnePlus 7T Pro or even the Pixel 4 and 4 XL. Putting that into even more context, the iPhones only have a 60Hz refresh rate, so these phones should be twice as smooth as Apple's phones. Now, all three of these phones come with a resolution of 1440p. The interesting thing is, at the moment, if you want the 120Hz screen option, you can't have 1440p enabled. It's capped at 1080p. This is to conserve battery life, because you can imagine if you have the highest resolution and the highest refresh rate, it would drain your battery pretty quickly. However, Samsung have said they will provide an update in the future where you can use 1440p with 120Hz.
Okay, now software's always been something which Samsung fell short on in the past. Since they updated to One UI, their new software, things have improved quite a lot. The first one though was slightly disappointing. Now, One UI 2 is what you get on all of these new phones, and to be honest, it's quite impressive. In fact, it might even be my favourite skin on Android apart from the very stock version. One thing which Samsung have done on the S20, S20 Plus and Ultra is actually increase the vibrance of all of the icons on One UI 2 quite a lot. Now, this makes the display seem even more impressive, and it definitely has that wow factor. In addition, with the Ultra being such a huge phone, you need some software implementations to help you navigate the software, otherwise you'd be shuffling up and down the phone constantly. Some things that One UI 2 tries to do is actually allow you to access anything that you need from the bottom half of the display. So if you're in the messaging app, for example, all of your messages will be accessible from the halfway point down. Same for settings or anything which is Samsung implemented. Of course, you get a dark mode of this phone, which is actually executed very well on this phone, and it really does show off the contrast and the abilities of the OLED display which Samsung provides. In terms of speakers, you get very good sound quality, and it is in fact Dolby Atmos tuned. They are stereo speakers and they sound pretty decent. I still think the iPhone 11 Pro or 11 Pro Max has a slight edge over this phone, but to be honest, it's still very good. One thing which I really like about these new phones is that they've removed the dedicated Bixby button. Now, this thing was absolutely horrible and you always accidentally pressed it. You still have Bixby if you long press the power button, but this can be disabled or switched to another function, for example, entering the power menu. And of course, double tapping the power button can launch the camera, which is always useful to have. In general, I think they've done an amazing job with the software this year and some other hardware features. Another thing which might be a slight gimmick right now, but is definitely really impressive and makes the phone very future-proof, is that all three of these models are available in 5G. Now, the S20 and S20 Plus are also available in 4G, but the Ultra is only available in 5G, in the UK at least. The S20's 5G, unfortunately, is capped at a lower bandwidth, so it won't be able to access the fastest possible 5G. Whereas the S20 Plus and Ultra both have full 5G capabilities, which has a slight advantage, especially if you're looking into the future where you might want this feature. Now, at its very peak, 5G could be up to 10 times faster than 4G. And certainly at the moment, even though the infrastructure is not fully in place in places like London, you still have emerging infrastructure and you do have 5G connectivity, or at least the lower end of 5G, which will still be better than 4G, just not 10 times. I certainly wouldn't buy this phone just for the 5G. It's definitely sort of a marketing tactic right now, but I could see how it would be useful in the future.
So what do you get in the box? With all three phones, you get a 25 watt fast charger. While this is the max charging speed of the S20 and S20 Plus, the S20 Ultra can go up to 45 watts fast charging, so you have to buy your own brick separately if you want to do that. All the phones also have wireless charging, and they have the reverse charging feature, so you can charge your wireless earbuds if you want to. You do also get a pair of USB-C AKG earphones in the box with all three phones. The S20 starts at £795, the S20 Plus starts at £995, and the S20 Ultra starts at £1,195. All three of these are crazy prices, however they are excellent phones, and the prices are actually pretty competitive compared to what we are seeing these days with the likes of the iPhones and other phones like the Pixels. If you're interested in the colors, the S20 comes in pink, blue or grey. The S20 Plus either comes in blue, grey or black, and the S20 Ultra either comes in grey or black. It would have been nice to see all the colours on all the phones, especially the Ultra. It's kind of a weird selection of colours that Samsung have chosen. Other than that, everything is pretty exceptional about these phones, and I'm sure you won't be disappointed if you choose to buy one. That's it from us this week. If you liked the video, please press the thumbs up button. If you loved it, please consider subscribing.